The silence in our house used to be a comforting blanket. Then it became suffocating, heavy with unspoken words. The most chilling sound? My son's voice suggesting I, his mother, should move into the garage. The garage. Like I was an old, forgotten appliance. That's when the silence shattered, not with a yell, but with a cold, hard resolve taking root in my heart. He figured I was too old, too tired to fight back. He was about to learn that a mother's love, when betrayed, can light a fire he never imagined. He wanted to kick me out of my life. I decided I'd kick him out from the very foundation he so clearly took for granted. This modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet California suburb wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the story of my life. Woven with laughter, tears, and 30 years of memories. I'd bought it with Michael, my late husband. After he passed, it became my sanctuary where I could still feel him. For 3 decades it was mine. My name and only my name on that deed, a detail that proved crucial. David, my son, was my world, especially after Michael. I poured everything into him. He was bright, charming, but as he aged, a sense of entitlement crept in. He'd borrow money with vague promises or assume I'd always pick up his messes, cook his meals, and listen to his dramas without him offering much in return. I'd brush it off as mothers often do, thinking he was just finding his way. About 2.5 years ago, after failed jobs and a broken lease, David asked to move back home. "Just for a little while, Mom," he'd said, "until I get back on my feet." Of course I said yes. The house was big enough and a part of me was happy to have him back. I gave him the largest spare room, hoping it would be a peaceful place for him to sort himself out. But a little while stretched into years. His presence grew heavy. He did nothing around the house, treating it like a hotel with free room and board, and me like the live-in innkeeper. Friends over at all hours, messes left for me, loud music. If I asked for consideration, I'd get an eye roll. Basic respect faded, replaced by an assumption that I was there to serve. I tried talking to him, expressing my concerns, asking him to chip in. Those chats ended with sighs and promises that vanished. The air grew thick with my unspoken frustration and his ignored responsibilities. I felt like I was losing my peace, a piece of my home, my identity. Our relationship was cracking and I was too scared to see how deep those cracks truly went. The day he suggested the unthinkable began like any other. I was in the kitchen when David walked in, a strange businesslike look on his face. "Mom," he started, "we need to talk about the living situation." I turned, a knot tightening in my stomach. "Oh, what about it, dear?" "Well," he said, waving his hand around, "I need more space. My own space. And frankly, you're just rattling around in this big house." I frowned. "Rattling around? David, this is my home. We both live here." He sighed impatiently. "Yeah, I know. But I'm young, I have needs. I'm thinking of setting up a proper home office, maybe a small gym area." "And what space were you thinking of using?" I asked, my heart thumping. He looked away, then back, his eyes cool. "Well, the master bedroom is the biggest. It just makes sense for me to have it. It's got the ensuite, better light." I stared at him, speechless. "My bedroom? The room I'd shared with his father? You want my bedroom?" "It's the logical choice," he said. "And don't worry, I've figured it all out for you." "Figured it out for me?" I whispered. "Yeah," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "The garage. It's pretty spacious. We can clear out some junk, put up some drywall, maybe a rug. It'll be cozy. You don't need much space, do you?" The garage. He wanted to move his mother into the cold, concrete box where we kept the lawnmower. The shock stole my breath. I felt sick, in agony so sharp it almost buckled my knees. This wasn't just disrespect. This was him trying to erase me, to shove me to the edges of my own life. You can't be serious," I managed. He shrugged, a casual shrug that cut deeper than any yelling. "Why not? It's practical. Look, Mom, you're getting older. Think of it as downsizing within your own property." He even tried a placating smile. The sheer nerve, the cold calculation, the absolute lack of empathy. It was a betrayal beyond words. He didn't see me as his mother or even as a person. I was an inconvenience. All the love I'd poured into him felt like ash in my mouth. The kitchen, usually so warm, felt like the coldest place on earth. He wasn't just suggesting a room swap. He was suggesting I was no longer important. The hurt was a living thing coiling in my chest. And right then something inside me didn't just break. It hardened. The days after David's monstrous suggestion were a blur of anguish and simmering rage. Sleep was impossible, his words, the garage, it'll be cozy, echoed in the dark. Cozy like I was a stray dog. Every imagined detail of that cold, damp space felt like a fresh stab. I moved through my home like a ghost. Familiar surroundings felt tainted. The living room where I'd taught him to read, the kitchen where we'd baked cookies, all felt like stages for his cruelty. I avoided him, retreating to my bedroom, the one he coveted, locking the door. The betrayal was a constant bitter taste. It wasn't just his desire for more space. It was the casual cruelty, the utter disregard for my feelings, my history. He assumed I, his mother, would meekly agree to be shunted aside. He saw an aging woman easy to manipulate, not the resilient woman I'd become. Through the pain, anger bubbled up, cold, clear anger. Why should I be shoved into the shadows in my own home, a home I owned? He had profoundly misunderstood me. The initial shock morphed into a hardening resolve. The son I loved seemed to have vanished, replaced by a callous stranger. If he could so easily dismiss my place in this home, then our foundation was already dust. Refusing and facing a daily battle of wills felt exhausting and demeaning. No, the hurt was too deep for a simple no. He'd drawn a line, unknowingly handing me the power to redraw it entirely. The victim feeling faded, replaced by a growing sense of agency. I would not be moved to the garage. I would not be diminished. The question wasn't if I would fight back, but how. And the answer, when it formed, was as audacious as his own proposal. The idea didn't hit me like a lightning bolt. It was a slow burn during those sleepless nights. Replaying his words, his casual dismissal, I searched for a way out of the emotional prison he'd built. At first I thought of telling him to leave, demanding he pack his bags. That felt satisfying but incomplete. Kicking him out would be a messy, drawn-out battle, likely involving lawyers. It would be another fight on his terms. Then a quieter thought surfaced. This is my house. My name on the deed. My sole ownership. The house was mine to do with as I pleased. If he felt he could dictate who lived where within its walls, perhaps he'd forgotten who held ultimate power over those walls. What if I didn't just evict him from a room? What if I removed the entire house from his reach? Sell the house. The thought was breathtaking, a mix of terror and giddy empowerment. Sell the family home filled with Michael's presence? Felt almost wrong. But then I'd picture David's smug face, outlining my future in the garage. That image was a strong antidote to sentimental hesitation. This wasn't just about getting him out. It was about reclaiming my power and dignity. He wanted to push me into a corner? I'd remove the entire building. He wanted to treat me like unwanted furniture? I'd show him I owned the store and could shut it down. The more I considered it, the more it felt right. It was clean, final, a move he would never see coming. He thought he was playing checkers. I was about to flip the board and play chess. This wasn't just revenge, though the thought of his face finding out was appealing. It was self-preservation, drawing a line so bold it could never be crossed again. It was choosing my peace over a toxic present. The garage proposal was his ultimate disrespect. Selling the house would be my ultimate act of self-respect. The spark was lit. Deciding to sell was one thing. Doing it with David oblivious was another. My first step was legal consultation. I wasn't a fool. I knew in California, an adult child living at home long-term like David had for over 2 years, likely had tenant rights, even without a lease. I met Mrs. Albright, a sharp, no-nonsense attorney. I laid out everything. The garage proposal, David living rent-free, my desire to sell. Well, Mrs. Henderson, she began, your son living in your home continuously for over 12 months, is considered a tenant under California law, specifically AB 1482. You can't just tell him to be out by morning. My heart sank. Hearing my disrespectful non-paying son called a tenant was a bitter pill. So what are my options? To end his tenancy, Mrs. Albright explained, you need just cause. At fault, causes like not paying rent are tricky without a formal agreement. However, there are no fault, just cause evictions. Selling the property, she confirmed, was a valid reason. But there are strict procedures. You'd need to give him a formal written 60-day notice since he's lived there over a year. Then came another layer. Also, Mrs. Albright continued, mentioning newer laws like SB 567, for no-fault evictions, You might have to provide relocation assistance. This meant possibly paying David a sum equal to 1 month's fair market rent. The irony was galling, paying him to leave the home he'd disrespected me in. She also mentioned that a formal eviction lawsuit and unlawful detainer action could drag out due to changes under AB 2347, giving him 10 court days to respond. I left with a clearer picture but a heavier heart. The law, in its fairness, offered David protections that felt unjust. Yet this didn't deter me, it fired me up. The cost and inconvenience would be a small price for my freedom. The garage would not be my future. Navigating these legalities made the power move feel more earned. I was strategically dismantling the life he thought he was entitled to, all while following the law, a law he clearly didn't think applied to his treatment of me. Armed with legal facts, my decision to sell was solid. Selling was a legitimate, albeit complicated, path to reclaiming my life. The potential relocation payment still stung, but I viewed it as a final severance package for a relationship he'd destroyed. Next, I needed a discreet, understanding yet aggressive real estate agent. I settled on Sarah, known for handling sensitive sales professionally. I explained I was the sole owner looking to downsize and my adult son lived with me but new changes were coming. I omitted the garage incident, it was too raw. The process began quickly. Sarah advised on staging, mostly decluttering. Packing away photos of Michael and family knickknacks was surprisingly painful, like dismantling my life prematurely. David, oblivious, barely noticed, too wrapped in his own world. Scheduling showings was tricky. Sarah was a master of discretion. We arranged viewings when David was reliably out. Several times I invented reasons to get him out for hours. A fake lunch invite, an urgent errand. Each lie added to my stress but also my determination. I felt like a spy in my own home. California's market isn't instant. Sarah warned it could take weeks, even months. The for sale sign was placed discreetly. I intercepted mail to hide official documents. Days crawled by. Every call from Sarah made my heart leap. Lowball offers came and went. I worried, what if it didn't sell quickly? What if David found out? The strain was immense, living a double life. Pleasantries with David felt like swallowing glass. But every time my resolve wobbled, I'd picture that garage and the steel returned. This wasn't just selling a house, it was my escape. Once we accepted an offer from the Millers, a young family, we entered escrow and the ticking clock grew louder. Inspections, appraisals, loan approvals, mountains of paperwork. Sarah handled most direct communications but my signature, input and focus were constantly needed. The average 60 to 90 days from listing to closing in California felt like an eternity on a tightrope. Disclosures made me anxious. California law requires extensive property information. Every form felt like a potential clue David might find. Sale-related documents were locked away. My calls with Sarah were hushed, usually when David was out or occupied. I took long walks for necessary phone calls, a nervous general planning a secret mission. Living with David required extreme self-control. Moments of his entitlement or thoughtlessness made me want to scream, "Your free ride is ending." But I bit my tongue, maintaining the charade. The emotional strain was incredible. Close calls were inevitable. An appraiser was scheduled one Saturday. I got David out by inventing a cousin needing moving help. The appraiser took longer than expected. David walked in 5 minutes after the appraiser left, oblivious, complaining his morning was wasted. I nearly collapsed with relief. Then the formal notice. Mrs. Albright was clear. Once the sale was firm, I had to give David the written 60-day notice to vacate, citing the property sale, and offer the legally obligated relocation assistance. Mrs. Albright drafted the notice. The plan was to hand it to him the day the sale officially closed. The new owners deserved a home, not a legal battle. I would handle my son's exit. The weight of secrecy, constant vigilance, and the emotional toll of operating covertly were immense. Guilt pangs were met with memories of his garage proposal. He started this breakdown in trust. I was navigating the fallout to protect myself. He wanted to push me to the margins. He was about to be out of the picture entirely. The closing date was set. The day the house sale officially closed was surreal. Sarah called mid-morning. "It's done, Carol. The deed has recorded. The funds are through. The house is no longer yours." A chapter of 30 years closed. Sadness for memories for Michael throbbed, but underneath flowed relief and triumph. I'd asked David to be home that afternoon for important family matters. He grumbled but agreed, likely expecting a chore request or lecture. He was on the sofa, scrolling his phone when I entered, 2 envelopes in hand, heart pounding, face a mask of calm. "David," I began, voice steadier than expected, "I have something to tell you." He looked up, impatient. "Yeah. What is it, Mom?" "As of about 2 hours ago," I said, taking a deep breath, "I no longer own this house. I've sold it." He sat bolt upright, phone clattering. "You what? You sold the house? You can't just sell the house." Disbelief and dawning panic laced his rising voice. "Oh, but I can, David," I said quietly. "And I have. The sale closed this morning. The new owners take possession in 60 days. I held out one envelope. This is for you. A formal, legal notice to vacate within 60 days. He stared at it, not taking it. "You're kidding, right? This is some sick joke. Sell our house. Without telling me." "This hasn't been our house in your sense for a long time, David," I said, voice hardening. "It has been my house. Your recent suggestions about my living arrangements made your disregard for my comfort and ownership clear." I gestured towards the garage. His face flushed. He remembered. "But where am I supposed to go?" The bravado cracked, revealing a frightened man-child. "That, David, you have 60 days to figure out," I said, placing the notice on the coffee table. "And this," I picked up the second envelope, "is your relocation assistance payment as per California law." Seeing the check stunned him. He'd expected a fight, not this cold, legal final move. He finally looked at me, eyes wide with fury and desperate understanding. "You did this to get back at me for the garage thing? You sold our home for revenge." "I sold my home, David," I corrected, voice unwavering. "To protect myself. To reclaim my dignity. To ensure I'd never feel like an inconvenience in my own life again. You wanted me out of your way. Well, consider it done. The entire space you took for granted will soon be unavailable to you." The silence that followed was thick with the rubble of a relationship he had demolished. His face was a mask of shock. The king of the castle was finding out it had been sold, and he was being evicted by a queen he had seriously underestimated. David's shock turned to anger, denial, pleading, then bewildered panic. He paced, looking like his world had blown up. "You can't do this. Call the agent, change your mind," he exclaimed. "This is our family home. What about my things? My life?" "The sale is final, David," I stated calmly. "It's legally binding. The Millers, a lovely family, are excited to make this their home. You have 60 days to pack. As for your life, maybe this is the push you need to build one of your own." He tried pleading. "Mom, please. I didn't mean it about the garage. I was stressed. We can work this out. I'll get a better job, I'll contribute, I promise." His words, once perhaps effective, now sounded hollow. "It's too late, David," I said, a tinge of sadness for the son I wished he'd been. "You showed me who you were. The garage wasn't just thoughtless. It reflected profound disrespect. Our trust is broken beyond repair." The following weeks were a strange dance of forced politeness and simmering tension. He swung between sullen silence, angry outbursts, muffled shouts from his room, and pathetic attempts to win me over with sudden offers of help. I kept a polite, firm distance, already mentally moving on, arranging my new, smaller apartment. Watching him scramble was grim vindication. He faced finding a place on a limited income, the logistics of moving, the dawning reality that his subsidized life was over. Frantic calls to friends for a couch, panic growing as days ticked by. No gloating from me, just quiet observation of consequences. For me, every packed box was a step towards freedom. Sorting decades of memories was bittersweet, but with each item kept or let go I felt lighter, shedding the weight of his entitlement and disrespect. The house, once a symbol of our shared past, now symbolized my reclaimed future. The day he moved out, a week before the deadline, the quiet that settled was peaceful, a clean slate. Walking through the empty rooms, sadness lingered for what was lost, for the fractured relationship. But stronger was a profound sense of peace and strength. I had faced betrayal and emerged stronger, in control. I sold the house not just for revenge but for my salvation. Locking the door for the final time, I knew I was walking towards myself. In the months after moving into my bright, airy apartment, all mine. I had time to think. The storm of emotions faded, leaving a calmer understanding. Selling the family home was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but also one of the most necessary. The core issue wasn't the garage or the house. It was respect, or its devastating lack. David's casual cruelty showed he'd stopped seeing me as a person deserving dignity. That realization hurt more than any argument. This taught me a tough lesson about unconditional love. It can't mean unconditional tolerance for disrespect. Protecting one's well-being and self-worth must come first, even if it means heartbreaking choices. Standing up for myself by selling the house wasn't cruelty. It was profound self-preservation. It was me saying, my worth is not up for debate. I also learned how easily one can get used to a bad situation. Living with David, I'd slowly let my own needs be pushed aside. His disregard became normal. His shocking garage proposition jolted me awake to how much of myself I'd allowed to be diminished. There's empowerment in walking through fire and emerging whole. I'd faced betrayal from the one person I thought I could always count on. Instead of crumbling, I found unknown strength. I'd navigated legal complexities, a secret sale, and a life change, all while dealing with incredible emotional pain. Do I miss the old house? Sometimes. I miss the smell of Michael's roses, the morning light in the kitchen. But memories are portable. My new apartment is smaller, simpler, but it's my sanctuary where my choices matter most. As for David, I hear he's still struggling, resentful, blaming me. Maybe one day he'll understand the lesson about consequences. Maybe not. His journey is his own. Mine is about looking forward, cherishing the peace I fought for, knowing I did what I had to do not just to survive but to truly live again on my own terms. The price of his disrespect was losing his home and a mother's unquestioning support. The value of my self-worth was my newfound freedom and peace. And that, I've learned, is priceless. That was my story, my painful journey from betrayal to reclaiming my life. It wasn't easy. What would you have done? Do you think I went too far, or was it justified? I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've experienced profound betrayal or have a story about reclaiming your power, please share it. Your stories matter. If this resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life stories. Click that notification bell too. That garage door may have closed on my old life, but a much wider, brighter door opened to a new one. It took profound betrayal to push me there, but I walked through it, head held high. Sometimes, devastating moments lead to our most significant transformations. Selling the house wasn't just ending a painful chapter. It was writing a new one, where my peace and dignity are the non-negotiable headlines. Thank you for listening.